Hello and welcome to Amazing Women in Business, a podcast where we celebrate the courage and tenacity of women who are not just participating, but profoundly transforming the business landscape. I'm Demi Lin, your host, and navigating the complexities of personal and professional growth across cultures. In my welcome episode, I shared several pivotal career moments, including both highs and lows. Some of my friends listened to the podcast and deeply resonated with those stories. They reached out to share their own experiences with me. From these conversations, I compiled a collective list of recurring themes and challenges voiced by the amazing women in business community. Today, I'm delighted to have my career coach, Peg Calvario, as my guest speaker. She is the certified executive coach and trusted advisor with a track record of developing top talent and guiding individuals to accelerate their career growth. Today, Peg shared her insights for amazing women to take risks, large and small, embrace the challenges, and reach their potential. Peg provided some insightful thoughts and approach for making career switch, striving a career progress, handling anxieties and pressure, dealing with job insecurities, building professional networks, and developing a personal vision and branding. I was so touched when she shared her personal experiences of making the best and invaluable investment on herself with a deep life therapy to help with her self-discovery and healing process of a significant life event. My favorite quote is her encouragement for women to give themselves daring assignment. She mentioned, give yourself daring assignments. As you allow for more risk-taking, you'll get into a cycle in which your self-confidence and power will be continually expanding. Until we are willing to put ourselves out there and take a risk, we will never be able to achieve professional success and realize our potential. Join us for this inspiring conversation as we explore how daring assignments, personal growth, and resilience can help you unlock your professional and personal best. Hi, Peg.
Oh, Demi, it's great to be with you today.
Yes, and thank you so much for joining my Amazing Women in Business podcast.
Absolutely.
I would like to ask some questions towards our women part. While you're coaching a lot of women in career, while they're climbing up their corporate ladder, what are the key challenges that you see most women face?
That's a great question because executive coaching, in terms of, is there a difference between that male leader versus that female leader? And a lot of women, I think, sometimes struggle with that balancing. They're juggling enormous number of balls, family responsibilities, their career. So often women also have maybe care for an aging parent. So there's just a lot going on, more for, I think, that woman in business.
So we, because by design or by nature, right?
Yes.
From society's expectation, we are taking a big portion of the family duties.
Correct.
Yeah. So we have to juggle with a lot. And while your clients come to you for help when they get into this lot of things going on, but I still want to have my career. And just take myself, for example. I have two daughters, and I think I attach great importance in my career life. A lot of time I have to deal with mom guilt. So mom's guilt is my biggest challenge over the past 14 years. For people like me, what would be your suggestion?
I kind of laugh because I think back to my children. And they would know that my workout time was a priority, and just coach so many different women in their career paths. For a majority of them, there is that little struggle of mom guilt. And I'm thinking of a client this week who was in New York City. Okay, and she is, away from her daughter and husband, and their dog passed, and the daughter is very emotional, and there's the mom who's on stage for a presentation, And that wrestle is how do you keep yourself together
Yes.
professionally, right? And at the same time also be that nurturing mother that's just so intuitive a part of who you are. And I think that it's important for women to have their personal life in addition to, who are you as a woman, as a friend, as a daughter, as a sister, as opposed to giving that all up, all for your family, and then next thing you know, in a blink of an eye, your daughters will be off to college, and they will be creating and designing the life that they want. You may all of a sudden have a sense of regret.
So we try to kind of live in the moment.
I think there's a lot of truth to the power of now.
Yeah. The other day, I saw an article about you, and you talk about some very good points. I wrote it down. You give some advice to women in business.
Yeah.
And you talk about give yourself daring assignments. As you allow for more risk-taking, you'll get into a cycle in which your self-confidence and power will be continually expanding. That's a very powerful statement. Can you elaborate on this?
Well, you have to just put yourself out there.
Okay.
Jenny. There's a lot of the self-doubt or the loss of my confidence. And, when you drill it down and it's always this voice in the head of the inner critic, all of a sudden I said, what's the voice of your inner champion? The one that tells you, go for it. You can do it. You're a competitive athlete in tennis, right? If you don't show up for the match, even though you might be a little apprehensive or there may be slight moments of fear, you go ahead and you get on the court and you show up.
Right. And I'm always admire those people who take that risk. But meanwhile, it's difficult. Like, for example, as the breadwinner, you take the risk, you make a switch. I always have that sound in my mind. What if I lose? If I take such a big risk and I can't afford my family?
And what if you win?
Yeah.
It's so easy in life to say, why me? As opposed to, why not me? Why not take the risk and see how far you can go?
That's very encouraging.
Well, I think I know you, and this is evidence of what you've done through your career transition, and you've created this amazing podcast, reaching, international, global, women all over the world.
Yeah, that's part of, that's the exciting part. I feel getting connected to people is something I'm always passionate about. And like, if we're not having this, we will probably just finish our meeting online. I will not be able to see you in person.
Exactly.
And you've been such a great coach during my career coaching time, and I'm so grateful that I will be able to see you in person. And then talk a little bit deeper, dive into your insights. There are a lot of women like me at some time of their life that they feel they got stuck in their job. They didn't get the promotion that they want. Their job was not providing enough value or was not visible to the executive leadership team. What would be your advice?
Best practices is to always have 2 external interviews a year. And so whenever I mention this best practice, or I ask, when was the last time you had an external interview?
So you want to do that interview to help you get your market value?
That is one great benefit, is to know your market value. you are expanding your professional network. Your resume is always up to date. Your interviewing skills.
Yes.
Okay? You're way more prepared. Okay? And in many ways, it's a way to, explore and be curious to know what are some of the competitors in your industry doing?
Yes.
Where do they see threats? Where do they see the opportunities for market growth? So I strongly encourage that practice. And that will get you out of feeling stuck or paralyzed or I don't have anywhere else to go in this company. You can use it in many ways to negotiate. You can decline an offer. I mean, it's an offer. You can delay that offer and have a conversation with your current employer. And maybe that opens the conversation to more of, so what are you really dissatisfied with? And that's the opportunity to say, you know what I realized? I do not have a path to the C-suite because maybe that C-suite is filled with all men.
So use that as in kind of open your conversation. But do you have the concern that some company, if they know that their people start interview outside of the company, they will question the loyalty, and probably they will say, okay, go ahead, since you're not loyal to my company and I'm not going to see you as my potential, I'm not going to invest in you. Do you see that kind of concern?
Well, when the question comes and someone is on a list of a reorganization and they say, Demi, your department, your team has been impacted and we're going to eliminate those roles. How often do people then say, you mean after 24 years, I got kicked to the curb?
Yeah.
Think about how valuable it is if you're able to give a competitive analysis back to your employer. That's valuable information.
Yes, I like that approach. You put yourself into the market, understand your market value, and probably see the gap. If you don't get a job, what's the gap? Where I need to improve in my current role?
Or for some people, it's also identifying in terms of, yes, I mean, you may be a finalist and you're not selected, but you do then know, okay, the candidate they selected, okay, might have had the experience here and you were here. So in that gap is what you continue to work on.
That's a really brilliant advice. Note taken. Yeah. There are a lot of women, sometimes they want to get a career switch. For example, they've been engineering, when they want to do business, right? They've been IT, they want to do something else. But there's always some concern and uncertainties around that. So I want to tap into your taking risk piece. How would you advise women like this when we try to make a career switch but having some cold feet?
One of the things to, I think, keep in mind when you're looking to switch careers or you want to do a self-inventory of, what are your strengths and what are those transferable skills or competencies and experiences. And one of the best ways is to do a lot more informational networking. Having those conversations with other women so if I was in engineering and I want to now kind of transition into business, start to have some of those conversations, those networking conversations with women in business. And start to build your professional network.
Some of my friends, they are actually having some security of their job and they're having concern about losing job and then get a lot of anxiety around that. What's your insight on this?
often we have to really kind of stop and I think take inventory and be able to identify, what are some of the assumptions we may be making and what are versus, what are the facts or what are the truths. And this is where that 2 external interviews practice a year would help to minimize the fears and anxieties that go with that. Life is certainly filled with lots of uncertainties and the unexpected, and change is inevitable in so many facets of our lives. And I think one of the keys is that when you start to think about what do you have control of?
Yes.
And so often we need to really pause and realize that we only have control over our attitude of response. And so sometimes the unexpected, the reorganization, the deployment, the layoff, whatever, the termination, can also be really the blessing in disguise.
That's true. I have a strong belief that something that don't kill you make you better. Right? If unfortunately if you get into that situation, so what? Maybe after 5 or 10 years, and if you take a look at that, you will say, "Wow, I'm so grateful that I got that experience."
Exactly, and it's the fear that can paralyze us, right? So in the event that one does lose their job, right? So often it's like, okay, so do you have a financial advisor? Speak to those professionals that are part of your life advisors, really, so that okay, what do I need to do in the event that my resources are limited?
Yes.
And how do you kind of bridge the gap?
Yeah, you just shared about how to deal with anxiety, mental part. But what can we do differently to make us even more visible, or just to make sure we are having a strong performance to protect us?
When you think about, especially maybe like this time of year, where you can kind of do a little bit of a self-reflection of the year end and take inventory and really identify what are the things that you felt that you really did well, and what would you choose to do differently, and what are you looking forward to, and setting, you don't need many, but a couple goals, and to always keep yourself. I'm a strong believer in continuous improvement.
Yeah.
So whether that is taking a course or attending a conference or convention, where are the opportunities for you to continually to keep learning? Where are the opportunities for you to upskill so that you are certainly a valuable team player to the organization? That's one way. Does it prevent someone being impacted? No, it doesn't. But also having that network, and also I think really critical is to always make sure, who's your sponsor? Do you have a sponsor in the organization? Do you have mentors in the organization? Those people who can certainly be your advocate, that have that voice at the table, so that they can, again, in one way, almost shield or protect you from the impact of a reorganization.
I am so grateful that I have the chance to have the career coach time with you, the Korn Ferry Executive Coach Program before. And I remember one time you make a very good suggestion about, you asked me, "Hey, Demi, what's your personal vision?" That was the aha moment. I've been doing strategy all the time, right? We've been talking about the company's, the business vision, what's the mission, what's the growth trajectory. But I feel I haven't spent enough time thinking about what's my personal vision. So I think that's a very interesting point. Would you mind help share a little bit more insight around this?
I think it comes back to we get so trapped. The day-to-day life of you become part of the business.
Yeah.
And you're always executing, or you're too busy. And so you're always in this mode of doing that we fail to take time to, again, have that moment of reflection, but be more intentional. Who do we want to be? What type of leader do we want to be? What is our personal vision? That's way beyond what we are doing.
Yes. I did something around that. And that was powerful. When I was like probably 7, 8 years ago, I put together my career mapping. I talk about where I am today, what I want to be in 2 to 3 years, what I want to be in 5 years, and after that, and what I see as my gap. And I use that mapping to talk with my managers. And every time when I talk, I put together my mapping and say, hey, what do you see the gaps? And then what would be a suggestion to address the gap? That's very helpful from some perspective. But I do agree with you, putting more thought into your vision. And then you can, down the road, you can plan your career path that tap into your vision and you don't get off track.
Right.
Yeah, that was very aha moment when you mentioned about the personal vision. One more thing is, personal branding. I have to confess, I did not spend way too much time on my personal vision, but I do spend a lot of time on my personal branding. I would love to pick your thoughts on the personal branding. What would be your suggestion about?
Well, one of the best ways to really is to ask 3 to 5 people if they could describe you in a word. What's the one word that best describes me? And so you take those words and you start to identify, obviously, if there's any common, what's the common thread. But you want to gain insight, and obviously you don't want the same types of people or the relationships. So that you get that perspective, and that helps to really formulate your brand.
So you said that you ask that question, let people around you give you some keywords, and then you compare, find out your strengths, and then you double down on your strengths.
Yeah. And with like ChatGPT now, right? When you use anything of AI, you can just kind of put in a couple things in there. It's a way to kind of kickstart that, for me, like that creativity. It's actually what I did many years ago when I transitioned into coaching. I asked a couple of different people to describe me and to use those words.
That's a very interesting way. And then after you get the thoughts, you get the feedback, and then you double down on your strengths.
So you gain different perspectives of how people see you and what they think you should do next.
This resonates so well with me because when I left the previous company, I received some very nice messages from my team, from my manager, and actually that's one of the reasons I'm starting the Amazing Women in Business. My takeaway here is also proactively looking for some words, for some message. Use that systematic approach and then invest yourself into it. Take a more proactive way instead of just receiving some comments when it comes. What's your biggest investment on yourself? I'm curious, in the past 20, 30 years, what investment did you on yourself, not on your family, not on your kids?
Well, there are 2 things. So I'll start with one, and then I'll end with something that's a little bit more personal. Last year, I completed a coaching supervision diploma program. This was a very intense 15-month program. It's international, and I really wanted to become a coach supervisor. And supervision is not like we would think of it in terms of as a supervisor on your job or a manager. It's much more in-depth. It's a much more reflective practice. It's really in therapy and social work and consultants, especially for people who work kind of solo. So it's a way to really reflect on your actual practice of work, even like ministry as well, has supervision. So this intense program, which required, a lot of time and practicum, as well as reading. I think it was about 25 books on psychology and coaching, executive coaching and supervision. And then at the very end, you had to write 2 papers. It was a lot of work. That investment in that whole program was very transformational for me. It changed kind of the ways that I do coach, the insights that I have with people. So that was a major investment, not only financially, but of time. Taking a risk when everyone else in the program was a whole lot younger than me.
Yeah.
So that was one. It'll be 20 years next month when I lost my daughter. And my daughter's 19, and I lost her to osteosarcoma, bone cancer.
Oh, gosh.
And of course, the death of a child has enormous impact on who you are.
Yeah.
And some of that is the reason why I am in coaching today. But the investment of really, partnering and working with a therapist at that time, because I had never, ever had any therapy.
Yeah.
But deep therapy was an investment in myself.
Yes.
It was certainly part of a healing process and a self-discovery of, again, who am I and what unfolded to know deeper about myself, and I'd say beliefs and, values and what I know to be true and how I do approach life. And so I would say that in itself was an investment. I think that for many people, when they experience a significant life event, you get too wrapped up, I think, culturally in wanting to do something versus then to go much deeper into the understanding that's deep inside of who you are.
I haven't really experienced any life therapy event. By talking to you, I can see how much of that conversation that can help you because you go deep into your heart and you have a lot of very deep conversation.
Yes.
And it's also provide a very safe environment where you can really test yourself, ask yourself, and figure out what matters the most.
Yes, it does. Test yourself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing this.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Amazing Women in Business. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a 5-star review. Don't forget to share this episode with another amazing woman in business who will benefit from our community and content. Together, we can empower more women to achieve their full potential. Until next time, keep thriving and breaking barriers.